Hello Ice and Fire Nerds, this is Chris and welcome back to another House of the Dragon video, and today we're going to talk about one of the major characters going to play an integral role in every single aspect of this story, and that is Prince Daemon Targaryen, otherwise known as the Rogue Prince. And by the way, before we get started, let me remind everybody, if you're new here or if you're just returning here, I have now written my first fantasy novel called The Crimson Gods. This will be available on October the 18th, but is available now for pre-order everywhere books are sold. So if you like medieval fantasy with a dark twist, think about getting a copy of The Crimson Gods. I will leave all those links in the description below. So Daemon Targaryen, otherwise known as the Rogue Prince or the Prince of the City, as well as Lord Fleabottom, was the son of Balon Targaryen, as well as the younger brother of King Viserys I Targaryen. Daemon would also eventually be the second husband to Rhaenyra Targaryen, Princess of Dragonstone, following her first husband, Lochmoor Velaryon, which we saw in the teaser trailer as well. So again, as I mentioned, Daemon was born in 81 AC during the reign of his grandfather, King Jaehaerys I Targaryen. It's said that within a few weeks of Daemon's birth, Alyssa Targaryen, his mother, took him flying on her dragon Meleys, and Daemon was deemed to be free-spirited and adventurous even in his youth. Daemon was also knighted at the age of 16 by his grandfather, King Jaehaerys I Targaryen, and gave him the House Targaryen ancestral Valyrian steel sword, Dark Sister. In 97 AC, Daemon married Lady Rhea Royce, the heir to Runestone, which is in the Vale, but Daemon did not really like her or the Vale of Arryn at all, and actually referred to his wife as the Bronze Bitch. If you guys remember from Game of Thrones, we saw Jon Royce, who was the Lord of Runestone at the time with all the bronze armor. Yeah, that was his family, and Daemon did not like them whatsoever. Now, before the Dance of the Dragons, which again was caused by the same old issues, and every single time when there's a war started, is who gets the Iron Throne. There was an actual dispute before that as well with his grandfather Jaehaerys I Targaryen, and he ended up calling a great council during 101 AC, where a lot of people came forth to put their claim towards the Iron Throne, but Daemon supported his brother Viserys because it would make him his actual heir in case he didn't have any sons. So he was a bit ambitious and always wanted the Iron Throne for himself, like a lot of people in this story. Daemon even gathered a small army when it was rumored that Lord Corlys Velaryon, otherwise known as the Sea Snake, was readying a fleet to defend the rights for his son, Lochmoor Velaryon, for the Iron Throne as well. Now later on, of course, they would become good friends, and Corlys Velaryon would essentially be his right-hand man. Where it starts to get really interesting with Daemon Targaryen is Sir Criston Cole, who would later become Lord Commander of the Kingsguard during the Dance of the Dragons, twice defeated Daemon in the tourney for King Viserys' ascension in 104 AC, and he both beat him in the melee and in the joust, even though Daemon was a renowned warrior. This may have been who we saw in the teaser trailer, where we saw him fighting someone with a Morningstar with Dark Sister. Criston Cole was known for fighting with a Morningstar, but we could not see who that was because we could not see his armor really that well or the sigil on his shield. So they may combine a few different tournaments here into one, just depending on what they do with the show, but Daemon ultimately lost to him in both matches. Now also during this tournament, Daemon asked his brother Viserys to set aside his marriage to Rhea Royce, but was refused. And during that time, Daemon also served as Master of Coin as well as Master of Laws, but apparently he didn't like sitting around in King's Landing trying to govern. But in my opinion, it was Sir Otto Hightower who had a lot to do with this, whispering in Viserys' ear. Otto Hightower did not like Daemon whatsoever in any way, shape, or form, and he actually begged King Viserys to remove him from the small council. Eventually, Daemon was appointed to Lord Commander of the City Watch, where he changed the organization forever that would even outlive him. When he joined the City Watch as Lord Commander, they didn't really have good armor or good equipment or anything, so he kind of changed all that, brought them the best equipment, the good armor, and gave them all golden cloaks to wear with pride. And ever since Daemon Targaryen took over the City Watch, they became known as the Gold Cloaks, some small legacy that would actually outlive him. And of course, this made him actually more powerful because he had more than 1,000 people at his command, which made Lord Otto Hightower nervous as well. And of course, as we learned in Game of Thrones, he who controls the City Watch controls the city. Now, during his time with the City Watch, Daemon developed a hell of a reputation as he got to know everybody in every single brothel in Fleabottom, and eventually became acquainted with a prostitute named Massaria, otherwise known as Lady Misery, who we saw a really brief shot of in the trailer as well. And while Daemon called himself the Prince of the City, he became known as Lord Fleabottom among the regular residents of King's Landing. And during all this time, Daemon actually considered himself his brother's heir, as his brother Viserys had no living sons at the time, and he wanted the official title of Prince of Dragonstone, but the king refused to give it to him. And this had a lot to do with Otto Hightower, who equally did not want Daemon to follow Viserys, and actually proposed the idea that Viserys' daughter Rhaenyra Targaryen should be named his heir, which eventually Viserys did. Now, of course, this is ironic because later during the Dance of the Dragons, Otto Hightower was on the side of his daughter, Queen Alicent, who wanted her son Aegon to be crowned instead of the named heir Rhaenyra Targaryen, so he would essentially flip-flop and switch sides based off what suited him. Now, Daemon's brother Viserys, his first wife Aemma Arryn, died during childbirth, giving birth to Baelon Targaryen, Viserys' second son, the first having died as an infant, and then Baelon, the second son, died a day after his birth as well. Apparently, Daemon Targaryen was observed in the brothel at the Street of Silk in Flea Bottom, making apparent jokes about him, calling him heir for a day. When this reached Viserys, the king was enraged and had Rhaenyra on the spot declared heir and Princess of Dragonstone in response to Daemon's jokes. Daemon became furious with this, of course, and resigned from the Gold Cloaks and flew with Mysaria, his lover, on his dragon Caraxes to Dragonstone and was not present for Rhaenyra's ceremony in the Red Keep. Now, while living on Dragonstone, his lover Mysaria actually got pregnant, and Daemon wanted to present her with a dragon egg, but his brother Viserys demanded they return the egg and return to his wife in the Vale. Daemon sent Mysaria to live in Lys, but she lost the child when the ship sailed through a storm in the Narrow Sea, and this of course made him resent his brother even more. After all this, with Daemon being bored again and not really any closer to the Iron Throne, he actually teamed up with Corlys Valyrian, the Lord of the Tides, as we talked about before, and allied together for a private war for the Stepstones, with Daemon desiring his own kingdom and Corlys wanting to rid the Stepstones of the rule by the Triarchy, which was an alliance of 3 different cities of Myr, Lys, and Tyros, otherwise known as the Three Daughters. They ruled the Stepstones and heavily taxed everybody going to and from the Narrow Sea, and Corlys Valyrian made all his money doing trade and traveling the world, and therefore he had similar interest in ridding the Stepstones of the Triarchy. So Corlys Valyrian provided his fleet, and Daemon flew on his dragon Caraxes and led an army which included the Second Sons. Eventually, Daemon slew the leader, Craghas Drahar, otherwise known as Crabfeeder, that we talked about previously in the leaked set videos. And after conquering 2 of the islands in the Stepstones, Daemon declared himself king of the Stepstones and the Narrow Sea, and was actually crowned by Corlys Valyrian himself. Eventually, Daemon grew bored again with his little kingdom of the sea and returned to King's Landing during the tournament that gave the Greens and the Blacks their names. He reconciled with his brother Viserys I Targaryen and offered him his crown of the Stepstones. Viserys welcomed his brother's return, and Daemon was given a seat on the small council once again. Of course, Daemon quickly took up his old habits and really didn't like the new queen, Queen Alicent Hightower, and her children, who had pushed him further down the line of succession. At this time, Daemon spent a lot of time with his niece, Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, who at this time was the heir to the Iron Throne, and essentially mocking Alicent in front of her and her Greens, therefore kind of dividing them even further. And Daemon and Rhaenyra spent a lot of time together, often flanked at Dragonstone on their dragons Caraxes and Syrax. Eventually, Daemon's first wife, Rhea Royce, died from falling from a horse in 115 AC, and Daemon abandoned the Stepstones and flew to the Vale of Arryn to claim Runestone, which had been her seat, but he was refused by House Royce. Daemon eventually left and went to Driftmark, where he became enchanted with Laena Velaryon, the daughter of his friend Lord Corlys Valyrian, and asked the Sea Snake for her hand in marriage. Now, Laena was already actually betrothed to the son of a Sea Lord of Braavos, but Daemon killed the Braavosi she was supposed to marry with Dark Sister in a duel. So Daemon then married Laena Velaryon as well, but it had been without the consent of King Viserys, his brother, and Daemon and Laena left Westeros and landed in Essos. After spending some time overseas, some say the free cities in Pentos, Volantis, Cahor, etc., but Mushroom, who I hope we get in this damn show, claims the pair went to the ruins of Valyria. Either way, Laena became pregnant, eventually giving birth to his daughters, Baela and Rhaena, who were both born in 116 AC. Now, eventually, Laena would actually die during the year 120 AC, which was called the Year of the Red Spring, trying to birth a son who died as well. Now, later in that same year, Lenore Velaryon was also killed as well by his companion and some say lover, Carl Corey. So in 120 AC, at the age of 39, Daemon married once again, this time to his niece, who he had liked before, Rhaenyra Targaryen, since they had both lost their significant others. At this time, Rhaenyra was 23 and the Princess of Dragonstone. Now, this marriage was also performed suddenly without the knowledge of King Viserys I, and was seen as scandalous because neither Laena or Lenore Velaryon, who had both died, neither one had been gone for over 6 months. Daemon and Rhaenyra had 2 sons together, Prince Aegon the Younger, born in 120 AC, and Prince Viserys, born in 122 AC. Now, of course, all these little details would eventually set up the Dance of the Dragons, because eventually Viserys I Targaryen, Daemon's brother, would die, and while of course he named Rhaenyra Targaryen, Daemon's wife, his heir, which would have essentially made Daemon the king, Sir Otto Hightower, Alicent Hightower, his daughter, who was the queen, of course wanted her son, Aegon, to become king, and immediately crowned him without even letting Rhaenyra know. So this led to the actual Dance of the Dragons, which I've covered before in plenty of previous videos. I'll leave the whole entire playlist for House of the Dragon in the description below. But that he will be a major player in this show, and I think likely will be a fan favorite due to him being kind of an anti-hero. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, thank you for all the support, especially you guys on Patreon, and a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers. And of course, if you dig what I do here, please give these videos a like, comment, and a share. And do me a huge favor, and please subscribe to the channel so we can let YouTube know that we are still here. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.